Hi, Robert. I hope you're doing well with the news that we kind of gave you. I know that the whole process of aortic regurgitation and heart failure sounds really scary. So I kind of just wanted to make this video and kind of explain things a little bit more to you so you have a better understanding of what's going on. And so basically I drew out the heart for us here. I wanted to show you that we have 4 chambers in our heart, and basically what's happening is we get deoxygenated blood from our body. So this is blood that our tissues have already used all the oxygen out of, and this is type of blood is going to go into our right atrium, then it's going to flow through our right ventricle and then go up to our lungs. When it goes up to our lungs, we're going to take a big, nice, deep breath in, and we're going to get oxygen back into our blood, where it's then going to go into the left side of our heart, and it's going to enter through the left atrium, then it'll go down into the left ventricle, and it's going to come up here to your aorta, and then it's going to go into the rest of your body. And so when we talk about aortic regurgitation, this is the area of the heart that we're kind of talking about. And in a normal heart, we would get that blood flow, coming in from the lungs. It goes into this chamber, which is called the left atrium. It's going to flow into the left ventricle. And then what's going to happen is that ventricle is going to contract. So that's when you kind of have that squeezing of your heart. And it's going to push blood up into your aorta. And in a normal heart, we have these valves. And so when it pushes up, these valves will close so that the blood flow goes up into the body system rather than kind of falling back down, because we do have those kind of gravitational forces. And what's going on with your heart with your aortic insufficiency of regurgitation is we're having a problem with that valve closing. It's not working the way that we want it to. So instead of the blood being able to push up into the body system, it's instead falling back down, and it's going back into that ventricle, and it's kind of filling that ventricle up with blood. And so one way that we kind of see happening with this is when we increase that blood volume, is this space is going to start getting bigger, and it's going to start stretching out. And we can kind of think of it as a water balloon. And so, when you fill up a water balloon with water, the edges kind of start to get thinner and they start to kind of stretch out. And that's kind of similar of what's going on with your heart here, is as we fill this with more volume, because that valve isn't closing the way that we want it to, it's going to start getting a little bit stretched out. And we don't want it to end up like a water balloon. You fill it up too much, the walls start to get really thin, and then eventually it pops. We don't want that. Your heart doesn't want that. So a way that your heart compensates for that is it's going to have this it's called eccentric remodeling. So it's going to add more tissues to the sides. It's going to kind of make the edges a little bit thicker. And so as this area kind of grows, it adds a bit more and more, so it can be a little bit thicker. So it's not thinning out kind of like a water balloon would. Now, as it gets thicker, we kind of get this larger, kind of floppier heart. It's not exactly doing as it should be. And that's really because we're having this backflow. And so one thing that we were able to notice on your physical exam is you have something called an end diastolic murmur, which is just an abnormal heart noise. So a normal heart sound would sound like lub-dub, lub-dub. And that is because those ventricles are shutting. That lub, those atrium are shutting, and that dub, the ventricular valves are shutting. And since what you have is this isn't kind of working properly, is we hear that lub, we hear your atriums closing, and we hear the dub, we hear a little bit of these valves closing, but what happens is we hear this shh after, and that shh is from the blood flow coming back in and hitting that wall. And so instead, your heart sounds like lub dub shh, lub dub shh, dub dub shh. And that's really because of what's going on with that aortic regurgitation. And another one of your symptoms that you may be feeling is you may kind of be feeling a little bit of fatigue. And that's because since we're having this kind of larger, floppier heart and we're not having as well of an ejection factor, is that blood can kind of continue to pool, and that pooling can happen in other parts of the body. So remember how we were talking about how this area is coming in from the lungs and how it kind of goes all the way to the backflow. This is kind of going to be pushing back towards the lungs, all of that kind of backflow, that blood backflow. And that's likely why you're getting that kind of shortness of breath up in your lungs. And then the blood can continue to kind of go elsewhere and cause more of that swelling in like your lower limbs. And it all has to do with because of this backflow that's going on, because we're not getting enough of that ejection up into your body system. And so with your heart failure, since we're looking at that aortic regurgitation and we're having that eccentric remodeling, it's going to be called heart failure with reduced ejection factor. And I know that this all sounds scary. It's not nice to hear that there's a problem going on with your valves, especially with something as important of an organ as your heart. But I just want you to know that you have the best possible team. We're going to do everything to make sure that you are well taken care of. And I really hope that this video kind of helps to answer any questions that you may have had, or help to kind of clear up really what's going on within your heart.